Hello everyone, today we're going to be doing the first part of our conference finals previews for the 2022 playoff series previews. So before we start this Avalanche Oilers matchup, please make sure to subscribe to my channel if you are new. Also, if you are new, I apologize, my setup does not normally look like this, but I'm in the process of moving, so I've had to get a lot of stuff out. That's why it looks kind of rough today. But anyway, let's get started, and we're going to kick it off by just kind of talking about the summary of how these two teams got here in the playoffs to where they are now. So, we're going to start with Colorado. The Avalanche were that top seed in the West this season and showed why as they're able to sweep the Nashville Predators in round 1 before beating the St. Louis Blues in 6 games to head to the conference finals for the first time since 2002. As for the Oilers, they took round 1 in a Game 7 against the Los Angeles Kings before surprisingly beating the Calgary Flames in 5 games in the Battle of Alberta to go on to the conference finals for the first time since 2006. So yeah, it's been a minute for both teams to be this deep into the postseason. So, what are some of the narrative/factors we should expect in this series? Well, I think one is going to be pretty obvious here. That is going to be the Nathan MacKinnon-Connor McDavid matchup that practically everyone wants to talk about, well, because it's just fun. That's why. These two players are kind of considered to be in that top tier of players in the world for hockey, and legitimately are probably in talks for best player in the world thanks to what they can do. You know, a lot of people will say Connor McDavid is the best player in the world, and then MacKinnon is a very, very good two-way player. How these two will perform will likely impact if their team wins or not, with Edmonton likely needing a bigger series from Connor McDavid than Colorado would need from MacKinnon due to the team's depth and talent respectively. To simply state the obvious, though, we're in for a really good show between the two. Connor McDavid had 44 goals and 79 assists for 123 points in 80 regular season games before putting up even more ridiculous stats in the postseason: 7 goals, 9 assists for 26 points in just 12 games. As for Mac, he had 32 goals and 56 assists for 88 points in the 56 regular season games that he was able to play before adding 8 goals and 5 assists for 13 points in 10 games this postseason. And I'd really expect for them to both put up pretty big numbers. And while yes, Colorado is great at limiting chances, we've seen time and time again you can only try to contain Connor McDavid by limiting him, but obviously you're not going to be able to just stop him outright. As for MacKinnon, he'll likely make an impact on both sides of the ice and will be partially responsible for helping his team try to keep Connor McDavid to where he's at, keep him at bay. That way he can't get the series to be in Edmonton's favor. Anytime these two are out there on the ice, expect it to be talked about because it should be. And I'm really hoping that that'll be a good matchup between the two. So, you're probably thinking, what's the next topic? Well, I'll tell you. That's going to be 3 Avs players that I think could really push the series in Colorado's favor very heavily if they're able to get on their game in this series. Not to say some of them haven't already. The first one is Mikko Rantanen. Some of you probably are confused too. He's a big name, one of the better players on Colorado's roster, but I really did want to focus on him. In the regular season, he was the team's leading goal scorer with 36 goals in 75 regular season games. However, in the playoffs, he has scored just 1 goal in 10 games, and that was an empty net goal against St. Louis, and that's just kind of where he's at the moment. He does have 10 assists in 10 playoff games, so you don't have to worry about nothing being on there in the traditional stat line, but you would really like your leading goal scorer to be able to score goals, considering he hasn't scored goals here in the postseason. And when your franchise is this close to being in the Stanley Cup Finals for the first time in nearly 20 years, over 20 years, 2001, you'd really like to see him get going again. Luckily, though, for Avalanche fans, the Finnish forward has an individual expected goal of 3.3, meaning based off the looks he's had, he would probably have 3 goals in this postseason run right now. So hopefully he's able to get that average back up there. Eventually there's a math thing, I forget what the term is, but if you keep doing something, eventually your numbers are going to level out. If you're doing bad, you're eventually going to do better than that. Not to say that it's all bad, but of course the goal scoring aspect. The next player we have to talk about is Valeri Nichushkin, and he is just a fun guy. Really love his story here. He's getting more and more attention as of late, and if he's able to be a factor in this series, this is really just good for them because he is very underrated this year. The former 10th overall pick has found a really nice home in Colorado the past, I believe, 3 years, as that was right after his contract was bought out by the Dallas Stars. So I think he played with Dallas for a little bit and then ended up going back to the KHL, but he is in Colorado and playing well. This year he had a season-high 25 goals this season and has shown why he's been a big steal for his team. as of right now, he's listed on that second line for the Avs, and this two-way winger will likely be a big part in this series, in this second line, and this success in the realm. Finally, the one player that I felt like would really be kind of a pivotal piece here that you should know about would be Andrei Burakovsky. The 2013 23rd overall pick will likely be on the third line, and assuming he's able to do what he did offensively this season, I think he's just going to be a big part here in this series in that bottom six role, which will be big for Colorado, as they know their top six players will probably be very, time consumed and kind of constrained by trying to make sure that the top six for Edmonton don't really get going there. So you'd really love somebody like Andre to bail them out, not even bail them out, but just help them out by scoring goals in a bottom six role for them. And I know that's going to be a really interesting story there. Finally, I wanted to talk about Darcy Kuemper for the final piece of this preview. And I actually remember making Darcy my Vezina pick last year before the season. Didn't happen, but I will say he was still having a very good year. My biggest worry, though, for Colorado is if he just suddenly stinks it up. I mean, he had that eye injury, and in general, there's been some games that he hasn't looked great in, so that's kind of unfortunate for them. I still view him as a good goalie, but when you've got to worry about the dangerous looks from McDavid, and then the other Oilers players getting hot, the power play, things like that, just kind of stuff that you should be a little bit worried about if you are Colorado, because he had, again, some stinkers, which will happen. Of course, they have the better team, that being Colorado, and in a normal scenario, I'd say a better goalie, but if Darcy's game is off, it could be a real problem, as Mike Smith has had some good moments this postseason. So, having said all this, I will have to pick a team to win this series. There's only going to be 4 after this Avs, or this Carolina, and New York game, but I'm going to be picking the Colorado Avalanche in 6 games of this conference final. I think this series, leans pretty heavily in Colorado's favor for sure, but trust me, it's not an easy pick. The Oilers are rolling at the right moment, and I could see this series going the distance, and that would be very, very bad for Colorado fans, because that Edmonton's best players can really do a lot of things, especially in a winner-take-all. Having said that, Colorado is in a good position with this group to get past the Oilers. The Avs have an edge in a lot of different ways, and I see their blue liners really being the thing that is the difference maker here for them. Taze, and then of course Makar. That top pairing is just really, really good. I don't know if Coach Woodcroft will play Draisaitl and McDavid a lot together in this series, because ideally you'd like to separate them considering Colorado's depth and spread that talent out, but we'll have to see. Look for a lot of Edmonton players that are the better players to do double shifts and see if they're able to handle those minutes in the series, so theoretically things will go better for the team. Either way, I'm just glad we're going to get this matchup, and honestly, I'd like to see the Oilers win just to have a Canadian team in the final, but we'll have to see what happens. But now it's time to hear who you would pick, and make sure to comment below who will win and how many games, all that good stuff. Don't forget to like this video if you like this video, and subscribe to my channel if you're new, want to see more content from me. Also, don't forget to check out my other series previews, reviews, all that good stuff. I'll leave a link down at the end of this video. So, everybody stay safe, have a great night, and you go off hockey, alright? Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.